All right, welcome to the podcast. We have a big game coming up: Detroit Red Wings versus the Carolina Hurricanes. This is game 60 of the season for the Detroit Red Wings. They have 23 games remaining, I believe. I think if I would have got it right. Last time out, the Detroit Red Wings beat the Ottawa Senators in overtime, and Carolina beat the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday 5-4. When you look at these two teams, there's stark contrast. They've split the season series so far. They're 1-1 against each other. Both teams have taken each other out on home ice. Detroit beat Carolina on Sergei Fedorov's retirement night. Carolina beat Detroit at the game after the Christmas break. Coming into this game, the Carolina Hurricanes are 8-0-2. They've won four straight, and like I said, they just beat the Tampa Bay Lightning last night on Thursday. So the thing you got to know about Carolina is, well, there's two things you got to know about Carolina. Look at their power play. They're 14th. Okay. Their penalty kills the 12th. 12th. Face-offs are not really that good, but you look at goals for and goals against, they're sixth in the NHL in both categories. They get 3.4 goals per night. That's sixth and best in the NHL compared to Detroit's 2.95. You see a stark difference. They're even better in goal with Brandon Bussi, who has been a huge story throughout the season. You look at goals against for both teams; it's not a big disparaging mark. But when you think about the Carolina Hurricanes, there's a couple things that stand out about the Hurricanes. They are a tough defensive team. They play defensive first. Jacob Slavin, their main defensive pair, he's such a talent. You've seen him with Team USA. He's so good at what he does. He's not really noticeable because he doesn't get the points and all that stuff, but he's a very good defensive stick. He's always got his stick in the passing lanes. That's why the Carolina Hurricanes have been so good this season. And when you look at the Carolina Hurricanes and the players who have really stepped up, Sebastian Aho, 4 goals in the last 5 games. Dylan Larkin, 3 goals in the last 5 games. 3 assists in the last 5 games for Larkin and 4 assists for Andrei Shletnikov for them. 6 points between Larkin and Aho. They're both centermen. They both, they are both they both of them can score, both of them can pass. It's kind of like they're the same player. Sebastian Aho doesn't really get the credit he deserves. I don't think Larkin gets the credit he deserves, but that's how it goes with these two teams. When you look at the standings right now, Money Puck has Detroit with an 81.7% chance to make the playoffs. And when you think about the playoffs, you go, okay, they just beat Tampa Bay. Carolina just beat Tampa Bay. They're first in their division, and I don't think that there is even a chance that Pittsburgh or New York can come into the fold because I think Carolina is that good. And obviously, with Pittsburgh losing Sidney Crosby for 4 weeks, it's going to be tough on them. You look at Detroit, there's so much turbulence in the Atlantic. You got Boston, you got Buffalo, you got Montreal. Head on your heels. You got to keep winning. And this Carolina team that they're going to be playing on Saturday, they're a tough team. They're a really tough team, and they could really make things difficult for you. So when you think about the Carolina Hurricanes, you think about who is their goaltender. Well, if you didn't know who their goaltender is, it's Brandon Bussi. And Brandon Bussi has been he's been one of the most wild stories of the whole entire NHL season. He's been going around the NHL. He's got a 2.23 goals against average, 906 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. He's 24-3-1. And he's been a huge portion to why the Carolina Hurricanes have been so good this year. When you think about how good he's been, you just look at those numbers and you go, okay, John Gibson's been pretty good, and this kid he just doesn't lose. I don't know. It's funny because a lot of people go, where did they get this kid? Obviously, with Korchenkov, their goalie, when he went down with an injury, that was a huge portion of it. But when you look at it, it's like this kid just wins games. 2.23 goals against average, 906 save percentage. Goals against are low for them. And you can see the save percentage for them is 885, 894 for Detroit. It's kind of a stark comparison. You could see how these two teams, but the expected starters are Brandon Bussi for Carolina and John Gibson for Detroit. And look, We know what this game is really going to mean for Detroit. When you think about the playoffs, what does this game mean for the Red Wings? If they beat the Canes in regulation, they make the playoffs at an 87.4% clip. That's a 5.7% increase. If they lose in regulation, it drops it down to 77.1 because of the turbulence in the Atlantic. That's a 4.6% drop. If they beat the Canes in overtime, it's still, they will be 87% and it'll be a 5.3% uptick. If they lose to the Carolina Hurricanes in OT, it doesn't drop the Red Wings playoff chances. It actually increases them by 0.6. So every point matters going down the stretch. When you think about the Detroit Red Wings and what they were able to do in Ottawa, that was a critical game. Obviously, they had that bogus goal thrown back. It should have been a goal, to be honest. I can't really wrap my head around it. And there's a lot of other people that can't wrap their head around it. But they win in overtime. Larkin scores the game winner. He becomes the all-time leader for overtime goals for the Detroit Red Wings, which is absolutely fantastic. And when we talk about Larkin, a lot of people have said, from whatever case of the imagination, they've said, this guy is not a captain material. This guy doesn't play clutch. You look down the way that he's played in overtime, 14 game-winning goals. That's pretty clutch. And I don't blame the team's success on Dylan Larkin. Larkin's played, actually, he's been a really key player for this team for a while. Now, obviously, we talked about it last game. We talked about the Senators and the player to watch that was good against the Senators. And one of the guys that I was talking about was Patrick Kane. Well, his other guy, Alex DeBrincat, is the player to watch for Detroit against Carolina because he's got 16 goals, 10 assists, 26 points in 27 games played. He's nearly a point per game player. And when you think about Alex DeBrincat, if he could be that guy that he could potentially put the puck in the net, skew the game the way, when you think about Carolina, like they played a 5-4 game against Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Tampa Bay is a pretty damn good team. Carolina at home, I'm getting the numbers right now. At home, they're 22-8-2. They don't lose much at home. Okay, they're 8-0-2 in their last 10, and they're 15-7-4 on the road. So there's a huge disparity between being at home and being on the road. And Carolina usually takes care of business at home. That's why it would be such a crucial victory if you could beat the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday. Because when you go play Nashville, that's another team that's been hot as a firecracker. They're 16-12-3 at home. They're 4-3-3 on the road. 4-3-3 in their last 10. So these are the next 3 games that you got coming up. And I think when you look at these 3 games, 2 things stand out. The start time for Monday is really weird. We will go live after the game because we're going to have our podcast after the game. It'll kind of work out pretty well for me. But you look at this 3-game stretch. You got the trade deadline on Friday. They play Florida. They're going to be home, so that's a good thing. They play Vegas. They play Florida. Florida's going to try to put themselves in the chance to get in the playoffs. Florida won last night over the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're still 8 points back, but they still, Florida Panthers aren't going to give up. So look, the Vegas, when you play them, they're first in the Pacific. They're a damn good team. They're going to try to keep it rolling. You got a tough stretch coming up. Carolina is another tough game. And everyone always, for everything that Carolina has done in the last couple of years, they do fall apart in the playoffs. I don't think they've had the adequate goaltending to be good in the playoffs. But when you watch Carolina, they're a pain in the ass to play against. They're just very, very tough to score on. They play a very defensive style game. They like to hem in your own zone, and that's why it's so crucial. When Detroit played Carolina in Detroit, they didn't have as many turnovers as they had against Carolina in Carolina after the Christmas break, and that's kind of what you have to kind of limit when you play Carolina. Carolina is going to get their chances. They always put their stick in the lane. They always put their stick in where you're trying to get the puck. Like they're really adequate in putting their stick in the lane, passing lane, shooting lane. That's what they do. Jacob Slavin, who is a great defensive defenseman that I talked about earlier in the podcast, Again, he likes to put his stick in the lane. He's so critical. Like if you watched him against with Team USA, um, always in the lane. Oh, he's a smart, headsy player. Kind of reminds me of like a Brian Rafalski, a guy who's really never out of position, who really doesn't have that shutdown tendency, but he's so good at with what he does that he's very tough to really get pucks in on. And Sider has done the same things that Slavin's done this year, but Slavin is at a whole different level. There's no one like Jacob Slavin in the NHL. So when you think about this game, Carolina is a favorite in this game. They should be a favorite in this game. Carolina is a damn good team at home. And if Detroit can win this game, I think this is a momentum booster for the second half of the schedule because we talked about it before. But when you're Detroit, you're going into March. Okay, you haven't had the best Marches that you could potentially have. You're gonna after Florida, you're gonna play New Jersey, you're gonna play at Florida. Like the schedule does get a little bit easier. You're gonna be playing Calgary, you're gonna play playing Philadelphia, New Jersey. You're gonna get a chance. You're gonna go play Dallas. Like Dallas is not an easy team either, but you got to stack up points as we get through this thing. And you're gonna play Tampa Bay once. You're gonna play Buffalo, and you're gonna play Montreal and your Ottawa and Pittsburgh. So all these games are gonna multiply down the stretch. But if you can get these points early on in February, especially with Nashville on the schedule, with Vegas coming to Detroit on the schedule, with Florida coming to the schedule, it kind of would make it easier if you can get these points early. Because you look down the stretch. I mean, you're going to play a 3-game road stretch where you go to Florida, Tampa Bay, and Dallas. Not an easy stretch. And then when you go to April, I mean, it gets a little easier because you're going to be playing New York, the Rangers, and Blue Jackets, but you still got to play the Minnesota Wild. You got to play Tampa Bay, and you got to play Florida and Philadelphia. So this game will be very strategic for Detroit. If they can win this game, it's very crucial for their success. If they can't, it might drop them a little bit in the playoff odds, 4.6% per money puck. But if Detroit can win this game, it's a huge, huge step in the right direction for the Detroit Red Wings. We'll talk to you Sunday as we put the game preview podcast together for Nashville. Hopefully Detroit comes out on the better end on Saturday night in Carolina. And we'll see you then. And we'll have a podcast on Monday after the Detroit Red Wings Nashville Predators game to go through it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next game preview podcast here on the Red Alert Podcast, here on Red Alert Podcast. Subscribe below if you like it. And we will upload these podcasts in March on our podcast page. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next one.